I did. All right, we'll bring our meeting to order this morning. Just briefly before we get started, Ms. Terry Castillo is with us. She'll be our new District 1 school board member. Opportunity this morning to take her to the school board offices and introduce her to Ms. Tanya and Ms. Schaefer, the communications team. So congratulations. We look forward to working with you. So I'm just going to read from the script here to make sure we are all legal. So today we have convened as the School Board of Osceola County, Florida, pursuant to Florida Statute 447.403 for the purpose of resolving the issues at Impasse by and between the School District of Osceola County and the Osceola County Education Association. Pursuant to Florida Statute 447.403, we will now proceed to having the parties explain their positions. Dr. Pace, as the district has declared impasse, I would ask you to go first. And you have 15 minutes. And before Dr. Pace gets started, because I have forgotten as well, if you would please silence your cell phones. Do we have, Ms. Tanya, do we have the time? You do, okay. Thank you, Dr. Pace. Please proceed.
Board members, OCEA, and community. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you my recommendations for the 2018-19 contract between the School Board of Osceola County and the Osceola County Educators Association for Instructional Employees. First, let me acknowledge that this process has been both disappointing and frustrating for all concerned. As superintendent, there is nothing I would rather do than bring forward a substantial raise for all of our employees, particularly our hardworking, deeply committed educators. However, I am charged with carrying out the mission and vision of this school board and protecting the interests of both the students we serve and the taxpayers to whom we are all responsible. I would also like to remind the school board and our community that it has been the long-standing practice of this board to treat our employees equitably when it comes to salary, benefits, and working conditions. Each salary and benefits package proposal recognizes that individuals from different employee groups serve our students differently and have different demands in their various job roles. But each proposal also recognizes that all employees play a critical role in delivering the great service to which we have committed ourselves. I'd like to start by reviewing the timeline of our bargaining process this year. And I'd like to remind the board that we began last spring with the stated intent of bringing forth a competitive salary proposal, the highest raise we've been able to offer in the past 5 years, in order to settle and ratify a contract prior to the end of the school year. Unfortunately, challenges impeded that process, but the timeline before you clearly reflects that this has been a process, and your district bargaining team has negotiated in good faith from start to end. This slide summarizes the 7 issues pending before the school board today: salary increase, starting salary, a recruitment incentive, design changes to the health benefits plan, a flexible spending account match, continued commitment to the Center for Employee Health, and contract languages modifications, all previously tentatively approved, agreed to by both parties through memorandums of understanding or revised contracts. I would also like to remind us all of the district's current financial situation. These slides come from the budget workshop held with the school board in May of this year. Clearly, the district has experienced tremendous growth in student enrollment over the past 10 years. Much of this growth has historically been absorbed by our charter schools, although last year, district enrollment growth exceeded growth in charter school enrollment for the first time in 5 years. Still, it's important to note that because almost 20% of our students are enrolled in charter schools, approximately 20% of our funding also goes to charter schools. Money does follow the student. This slide reflects this year's growth in the FEFP formula And it's important to note that the increased funding for the district, over $31 million, is a direct result of the substantial growth in our student growth population, especially last year, 5.1%. This slide illustrates another critically important point. Most of the increased funding came in the form of restricted funds, and the overall increase in the base student allocation, the funds we have flexibility to spend, was only 47 cents. The district ranks 65 out of 67 counties in per student funding. In May, the district team presented to the school board this list of budget needs, clearly identifying that most of the new monies were needed to fund our growth in student enrollment. New teacher positions, highlighted in salmon, new support positions, and new charter schools, as well as our own 2 new schools. The amount earmarked for salary increases, highlighted in yellow, reflects the total pot of money needed to provide a 2% average increase to all employee groups, the amount on the table for teachers, and the amount already agreed to by OCEA's ESP bargaining unit. I would also call your attention to the number at the bottom of the page, $483,948. That number represents the safety net in this year's tentative budget. Not a very big number, considering our overall tentative budget is over $1 billion. But that number is what allows us to have allocation meetings with our principals today without talking about layoffs, even though our elementary schools are currently 1,600 students below projection. This slide reflects the long-range forecast from our tentative budget hearing. And while the fund balance exceeds the board's policy minimum of 6%, this board has been clear in that we must live within our means by operating a balanced budget that maintains an adequate rather than a minimum reserve. As you can see, we are not recommending growth in the percentage of unassigned fund balance. In fact, the percentage is projected to decline slightly in order to fund the needs we prioritized on the previous slide. But we are recommending overall stability, as this fund is equivalent to your personal savings account. Once these dollars are gone, they're gone. They cannot be allocated toward recurring expenses like salaries. My first recommendation is to adopt the proposed 2% average salary increase, previously tentatively agreed to by both parties, and equitable to the salary increase offered to and accepted by OCEA's ESP unit and non-bargaining employees. This again represents the highest salary increase we have been able to offer in the last 5 years. In comparison to other counties in the Central Florida area, starting and ending salary are competitive, and these comparisons do not include the raise currently on the table. My second recommendation is to adopt the increased starting salary of $41,000, previously tentatively agreed to by both parties, which would bring us to number 1 in starting salary in the Central Florida area, a figure critically important in the highly competitive teacher recruitment market. My third recommendation is to adopt the $250 recruitment incentive, also previously accepted by both parties, because as we surveyed first-year teachers last year, the number 1 recruitment influence was a friend or a colleague who recommended SDOC and Osceola County as great places to live and work. My fourth recommendation is to adopt in total the design changes to the health benefits plan. It is the district's position that the plan design functions as a whole and includes premiums, co-pays, co-insurance, and deductibles. It is also the district's position that it was the health benefits plans in total that were really the subject of the July 31st impasse hearing. OCEA, on the other hand, has taken the position that only deductibles were at issue on July 31st and has conceded that they had previously tentatively accepted the increased premiums. Today, I want to be clear in that my request is the board's acceptance of the complete package of design changes as presented. This slide illustrates the continued negative impact on our health trust fund, as expenses have consistently exceeded revenues since 2016. In fact, this year, as illustrated by this slide, healthcare expenses have exceeded revenues by an average of $625,000 every month. This trend is not sustainable, as illustrated in this slide, illustrating that our trust fund is projected to fall below the state minimum, a 60-day balance of projected expenses, by next June. even with the $8.5 million you directed toward this fund through this year's budget process. As a board, you have made it clear that I am not to allow that to happen, and I stand firm today in recommending the changes we proposed as essential for the financial stability of our health benefits offerings. In fact, because we have not yet been able to reach agreement with OCEA on changes to the health plan, we face a potential delay for open enrollment and implementation of plan design changes by 1 month. It's coming at an estimated cost to the plan of over $1 million in addition, monies that otherwise could have been allocated toward salaries. This chart illustrates that the vast majority of our instructional employees, 71%, currently are enrolled in the employee-only plan. These employees can continue to participate if they elect to do so in the Local Plus plan at no cost to them as individuals, other than their deductibles, coinsurance, and copays. All employees will have the opportunity to choose between the 3 plans proposed, as in the past during open enrollment, and employees who decide to switch from Wellness Open Access to Wellness Local Plus, or from Wellness Local Plus to Local Plus, even with dependent coverage, would see a decrease in their premiums for the year. Employees will have the opportunity to make the best decisions for their families while we take the critical steps necessary to protect the integrity of our health trust fund. I also think it's important to note that the district's negotiating team and your district finance staff do not develop proposals to change the health benefits plan in isolation. The insurance committee is a standing committee, and teachers comprise the majority of that committee by contract. 4 of the 5 teacher representatives from OCEA, including the president, were in attendance throughout the fall and in December, when it was decided to bring the original plan design changes forward. From January through April, the proposed plan design changes were revised to reflect the reduced premium increases you see on our proposal, based on discussions in the collaborative bargaining process. I also must remind the school board and those listening again, OCEA tentatively agreed to the premium increases you see before you, and the deductibles were a subject of dispute at the Impasse hearing on July 31st. I ask you to today adopt the design changes in full. Recommendations 5 and 6 are basic. To offset the impact of the increased deductibles, I'm recommending a board match of $250 for FSA contributions from an employees of $750. The FSA deductions are pre-tax, and employees who anticipate having a baby, having knee surgery, or buying new glasses can save through payroll deductions to meet their deductible, with matching support from a board contribution. If an employee elects to allocate $37.50 per paycheck for the 20 paychecks from which we withdraw insurance premiums, we'll provide the additional $250 to meet the $1,000 deductible under this recommendation. And while we continue to examine ways to make our Center of Employee Health both operationally efficient and effective, I recommend the board demonstrate a continued commitment to providing high-quality health care with an emphasis on wellness with no copays for visits or prescriptions at the center. Finally, throughout the negotiating process, both parties reached agreement on a number of contract language revisions through memorandums of understanding and contract revisions that must be either renewed, extended, or implemented for the 2018-19 school year. These include a streamlined mastery-based evaluation framework, continued dedication of time within the teacher workday for PLCs, and other items identified in the packet before you and presented to OCEA at last week's bargaining session. I'm committed to continuing to work with teacher leaders and members of my leadership team to identify roadblocks and non-essential tasks that we can remove from the workload of our teachers so that they can focus on their students and achieve a healthy work-life balance while preserving the culture of collaboration that I believe is essential for us to continue to improve teaching and learning across the district. I close by requesting the school board formally adopt these 7 recommendations as outlined in the School District of Osceola County Salaries and Benefits Package Settlement dated August 23rd, 2018. And board, with your action today, followed by an expedient ratification vote, our HR and payroll departments have committed to having salary increases reflected in teacher paychecks on September the 28th, and we can then immediately take the steps necessary to reverse the current negative trend in our health insurance trust fund through open enrollment and implementation of the plan design changes. Thank you for your continued commitment to rewarding and retaining great teachers, recognizing the important contributions all of us make in serving every child, every chance, every day. I'm happy to take any questions.
Board, does anybody have any questions for Dr. Pace? Sure. Thank you, Dr. Pace. Yes, Dr. Pace will be available at the conclusion of the presentation by Ms. Jackson and OCEA. I'll invite you up now.
One second.
Tanya, remember to start the timer.
Sorry for that brief delay,
Oh, you're fine.
but we're honored to have President of Florida Education Association Joanne McCall and Secretary Treasurer Luke Flint in attendance today to support our educators. The clicker.
Right
There
in
it is.
front of you. Yep, very good. I hope you're better at using that than I am.
Probably not. Between August 20th and August 23rd, after the ratification failed on August 16th, we took a survey of the teachers through SurveyMonkey to see exactly why they did not ratify the contract. In just 2 days, 2.5 days, 746 teachers responded. Most of the employees have less than 15 years of experience, and most are elementary school teachers. And I apologize for the quality of the survey, but this was taken directly from the website. When asked to rank 6 items from most important to least important, most of the teachers stated that salaries were the most important item to them in bargaining. 83% of those who responded said salaries were the most important issue. OCA is not saying that the school board did not do their best effort for salaries this year. We took everything in ratification to the teachers, and the teachers said they've had enough. They're thoroughly disgusted with their salaries and the way things are going. May be the board, may not be the board, but it's the way things are in the state of Florida. Florida is 47th in salaries nationally. Osceola County ranks in the middle for salaries within the state. Next one. The district's proposal, which OCA agreed to at the bargaining table because we realized that this was the best offer that has been brought before us in a very long time. We know this. We agreed to in bargaining $1,200 for highly effective, $1,150 for professional service contract or continuing contract, and $900 for all effective annual contract teachers. Your bargaining team agreed to this. The teachers did not in ratification. And here's the main reason why it was not approved. If you look at the salary schedule, and this is the proposed salary schedule, I took last year's crosswalk, which is included in the binder we provided to you, and added $900 to each step. It shows that beginning teachers make only $8,450 less than a teacher who has been in the district for 20 years. 20 years, and they're still not breaking $50,000. This is frustrating and insulting to many educators. Next, please. When I ran the numbers from payroll that I received yesterday, there are 3,926 teachers currently in our district. Of that number, 3,242 teachers make less than $50,000. That is everyone with 20 years of experience or less. No other profession makes so little money after 20 years of experience. These are dedicated employees who have been in the district educating your children, my children and grandchildren, and they're still not making a living wage. Between April 2017 and 2018, we had almost 700 employees leave the district. This was data provided by the district to me. At new teacher orientation, there were 425 new teachers. Last count, there were still 120 vacancies. So in 18 months, 1/3 of all teachers in Osceola County left. There are a few additional positions added, but about a third of the teachers left. How can we continue to educate our children and expect our district to be an A or a B district when we can't maintain experienced teachers? We're putting large amount of monies into the teachers to prepare them to be educators, and then they leave and go to another county. And also, according to the district's website, if you have a family of 4 on one salary, teacher's salary of $4,435, you qualify for reduced lunches. All teachers with 15 years of experience or less qualify for reduced lunches for their children. Now, we know that numerous staff has been added to the district, and we're not saying that these positions aren't important or needed. But the bottom line is, while we are adding additional positions to the district level, that's taking salary dollars out of the teachers' pockets. We have many, many teachers who are struggling each day. We have more and more people as resource who are directing teachers of what they should be doing in their classrooms. Guidance and assistance is always appreciated, but what we need are more experienced teachers staying in the classrooms, working with our children, and not being told what we need to do. If we paid the teachers more teachers would remain in Osceola County. The next slide is a comparison of what the insurance premiums are for the surrounding counties and beginning salaries. And you can see that there are some counties that pay quite a bit more for families. Polk County's policy, it's difficult to figure out what their policy and they're paying, because they pay one amount for one child, another amount for 2, 3 or more children. So it's almost impossible to actually determine and compare the two, but that's why it says it varies. But if you look at this, Orange County has a lower starting salary than we do. Orange County also only pays $3,000 a year for family coverage. That's not doable in Osceola County. We know that. But when Orange County has fewer vacancies than Osceola County, it's sending a message to the school board that we have to do something to maintain staff here. I had 4 teachers tell me just on Monday that they're resigning effective tomorrow, going to Orange County because they're going to be bringing home more money. So if they take a pay cut, but yet they're paying fewer for their children, they're going to clear $37,000 before taxes and their 3% FRS. In Osceola County, that amount is significantly less. It's only $31,960. So they are willing to take a pay cut to bring more money home. And they're not only taking a pay cut, they're also losing their professional service contract status, which many of you know no longer exists in Florida once you change districts. So that's sending a clear message to us, at least as a union, that it's more important for them to be bringing more money home than to have job security. Next one, please. Let's talk about the trust fund dilemma. And this has been a sore spot for a long time. First of all, we were in attendance at the insurance meeting when they proposed the premiums that were brought forward. We were, but was noted by myself at that meeting, and you can ask any of the members that were in attendance, I stated quite clearly that the teachers of Osceola County would never ratify such large increases in their insurance premiums. I stated that in the meeting. I said it's not going to pass. It should have been done gradually over a period of years, and it wasn't. So why wasn't it done gradually? A few key points. In 2014, we increased the premiums. It was brought to us very late in the bargaining session. Our policy in bargaining is you present something one month, we either discuss it or vote on it the following month. We never vote on an issue the same time it's presented. In 2014, it was presented at the last minute. OCEA said that we realized there had to be a significant change in premiums, and we agreed to it, but we also stated that we would never again be rushed in making a decision. Each year after that, until this year, insurance was brought to us in a manner in which it would never have been ratified or approved in a timely manner, or would have broken federal law by bifurcating the ratification process. Once we ratify a contract, as last year, for a 2-year period, you can't vote on another issue. Once the contract is ratified, it's ratified. So while we have been willing to discuss insurance and increase the trust fund gradually over the years, it was never brought to the bargaining table in enough time for us to discuss it and to approve it and put it out for ratification, which is causing the issue we have this year where we have such a large increase in the premiums. The employees are the ones that are being held responsible for this, but I need to be quite clear on the fact that it was not our fault that this was not ratified prior to this year. Okay. In your original salary proposal, we were offered a $1,000 retention bonus. OCEA asked at bargaining if we could look at the possibility of that bonus being put into the insurance trust fund. We suggested that to offset the cost of the insurance. The district willingly looked at it, and it worked. They could reduce the premiums. But when the ratification information went out, it never said where that $1,000 went. If that $1,000 was moved from a bonus into insurance, I am positive that this would have been ratified by the teachers of Osceola County, because it would have shown that there was an additional amount of money going into the insurance trust fund from the school board and not just from the employees. That $1,000 still does not appear in the insurance trust fund. We don't know where that money went that was offered. We were told it was going to insurance, but there is no proof that that amount went into the insurance trust fund. And while it was $1,000 per teacher, it was $500 for ESP. So rationally, we would think a $750 increase from the school board would have shown up somewhere in the documents, which it did not. Now here's where we get into the bulk of the issues. We give a definition of collective bargaining from Florida statute, and I've included the entire statute in your booklets. It's in section number 4. When we went to the bargaining table last Thursday, we were handed a packet, and we were asked, will OCEA accept the district's proposal? I personally requested that we break it up and look at each item individually. We were told no. I again asked, were you willing to take this proposal? And I said, we cannot accept the proposal, all of it at once. We need to break it up into smaller sections. Again, I was told no, and the district declared impasse within 10 minutes of the discussion. And the reason I'm bringing that up is our team knew that there was no more money available. We knew that the insurance premiums had to happen. Do we like it? No. But we realized that this was a possibility. What we were going to ask for, go ahead, next two, was some contract language to improve the working conditions of the teachers. We weren't asking for more money. We weren't asking for the insurance premiums to be decreased. We simply wanted to make the teacher's workday a little less burdensome, a little less frustrating. And I've included the language that we would have discussed at bargaining had we been given the opportunity, which we were not. Next one, please. We were asking that the PLCs during planning periods be eliminated for this year. We're already meeting 4 times a month on Wednesdays. Teachers are meeting amongst themselves regardless of the requirement, but they feel as if they're being micromanaged in their classrooms when they're being required to give up their planning periods to meet twice a month. This one item would have helped so many teachers feel appreciated and know that the district is working with us to try and do a better job in our classrooms. Next, please. Second is the pharmacy plan. We did an MOU on this, we agreed to it, but when we realized some of the changes were affecting our teachers, it was a little bothersome. We have one individual who has ADD, ADHD, and takes Vicam. Is that what it is? Okay, I can't remember because it's not a medicine I'm familiar with. She had to get special consent from her doctor to continue taking that medication. It took her 2 months to get the medication approved. Now, if you know anybody who has severe ADD, ADHD, they can't go 2 months without their medication. So after going without her medication for 2 months, she had it approved, only to find out that it increased to $120 from $35. So in addition to the increased premium that she's paying, she's now putting roughly an extra $100 out of her pocket a month to pay for her medication. We were going to ask if just these 2 items in the MOU for prescriptions could be changed. It would save your employees money, and it would help them to be healthier in the classroom, because now the member that I'm speaking about has to choose between paying the higher premium or taking her ADD medication for her family. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want someone in the classroom who hasn't taken medication that's helping them to concentrate and do a better job with our children. This was not going to cost any more than $300,000. That's taken directly from the MOU. Next, please. Flex Day. We just wanted teachers to be able to take off any of the work days, not the in-service day, but the work days for their flex day and not the last day of school. And the reason for this is last spring, during the last day of school, teachers were told that their classrooms were being transferred the day before school was out. So those that had planned to take the flex day as the last day of school couldn't take it because they had to pack up everything in their classroom to prepare for a move. This could happen again at the end of this year. They willingly worked the day prior to the beginning of school with the understanding that they would have the last day of school off. We would like them to be able to take off any one of the work days as long as they've met their job requirements. We're not saying just take it off and not submit your grades. If you have every single thing done for what you need to do for your class's responsibility, give us that day off. Let us take the day off in October, January, March. Not make us take the very last day of school. Okay. And the new evaluation program, which is a huge change for the teachers in Osceola County. Our concern has been from the very beginning in the evaluation subcommittee that during this first year, teachers should be held harmless if an administrator does not observe all 23 elements. Administrators will be in the classroom 4 times, and they're to score all 17 elements that they can view in the classroom, and the additional elements are part of their paperwork that the teachers turn in. The way the current language stands is if the teacher does not have all the elements scored, they get a 0. And it's the teacher's responsibility to tell the administrators that you haven't observed this element yet, please come and do it. Please come and do it. Well, I don't know about you, but I've been in schools, and in all honesty, at Osceola High School, I was observed in post-planning because they didn't have enough time to get to me. I had no students. I was not giving instruction. I was packing up my class, and I got a glowing evaluation. Now, I'm really glad that the administrator followed through and gave me a glowing evaluation, but in all honesty, he didn't see me teach. There is not enough time in the day for every single administrator to observe every single teacher on all the new elements the first year that this program is implemented. None of the administrators have practiced this yet, and it's going to be difficult for all schools to have all teachers observed. And we just ask for 1 year, but they be held harmless. That's the only language we were going to bring forward in bargaining, guys. Nothing else. We know that salaries are what they are this year. I've looked at the budget. I know there's no additional money. Again, if we didn't hire as many people at the district office, you could pay us a little more, but we're not going to go there. Our teachers have had enough. They're angry, they're hurt, and they feel unappreciated. If you can't give them more money, fix their working environment so that they have a better work day. We have teachers who never before are refusing to come back to open house in the evenings. They're refusing. They're not staying for parent conferences after school. We have schools where students start at 8 o'clock in the morning and the teachers start at 8 o'clock in the morning. They're coming in at 8 o'clock. They're not going in early to prepare their classrooms. The students in Osceola County are the ones that are being affected by everything that's done. And it's sad that we've gotten to this point. Now, I know my time's up. I have one thing I need to say. If you impose today your decisions, it does not have to go to ratification. If you vote to impose, it is imposed. It is imposed for 1 calendar year. If we take it to ratification, then it is in the contract. I know that time is important to this, so I'm being quite clear that we are not going to take this to ratification. We can go back to the table, we can rebargain everything after the imposition. Because I have to run it for 10 days and then hold an election. And I can tell you, it's not going to be ratified again. The teachers are that angry, and they're not willing to vote in favor of what may be imposed today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Board, is there any questions for Ms. Jackson? Mrs. Thacker? Vice Chair?
Why do you think that they will not be ratified?
I have a pretty good pulse on what the teachers' opinions are.
I understood that in the last one, not every teacher really knew what they were voting for, or at least that's what.
No, that's not
Hold on.
that is not accurate. Everything was posted on Facebook. The confusion was with the ESPs, where they didn't realize that they were getting their raise automatically because it was imposed. 35% voting for a ratification process is extremely high. In most districts, they run 3 to 10% for ratification. So I know from the people that have called me, or if you followed our Facebook page, the teachers would not ratify this.
Got Mr. Soto?
Maybe.
You got it. Okay.
Looking here for
Give
rules.
Mr. Soto a moment. Give Mr. Thacker a moment.
I've known you all
let's
for a
not
long
rush
time.
this, okay, guys? Seriously, we have the 15 minutes. We have an opportunity here. I just want to make sure I understand exactly.
Oh, Ms. Jackson?
Yes. I'm sorry.
No. I was going to ask you because I saw your your survey. I saw that salaries were the number one, obviously, and we talked about that. And I know you and I have had some discussions in the past about how I feel about some of the changes. So I guess what I would ask is, what do you say? What is your solution? I mean, you just said that you've seen our budget. We all look at the same budget. It's a public record.
If you improve the working conditions of the teachers, they would accept the salaries.
Let's
But
talk a
until
little
there's
bit-
an improvement in the working conditions, they're not going to agree.
Ms. Jackson, let's talk a little bit about the proposal that you brought up on your slide about the PLC meetings. Tell me a little bit. From what I understand, from your words, is that these are just happening a little bit too often.
Correct. Teachers are being told that they have to have 2 PLC meetings per month during planning period. Teachers already meet on their own during their planning periods to plan. During the PLC meetings at the present time, most of their time is spent developing rubrics and scales to post in their classrooms rather than work on the quality of their lesson plans.
Don't go away, have a seat. Can I have someone?
Thanks, Kelvin.
Dr. Pace?
Yes, sir.
You know where I was going. What is the purpose of these PLCs and why are they so often? Have they been reviewed as to what they're doing, what they're supposed to do? Fill me in here.
The district implemented professional learning communities prior to my becoming the superintendent. What we did a year ago was to reach agreement with OCEA on the MOU to say that we would reserve Wednesday afternoons for PLCs and 2 planning periods a month, but no more than that, for the opportunity for either grade level teams or content area teams to come together and collaboratively plan. Because we do recognize that collaborative planning is typically more effective than planning independently. And we like to see the consistency across classrooms to make sure that all students are getting the same viable curriculum to help them meet the standards.
Dr. Pace, are
If
these-
I'm absolutely willing to
are these
work with
guidelines
Ms.
or
Jackson.
Well, what my question was, so these are prescribed as you just stated.
But teachers get to choose which planning period they want to use for that particular time to meet with their grade level or content area department. And we also have some schools, not some schools, but some subject areas that are moving toward virtual PLCs. For example, our foreign language teachers, because there may be only one French teacher at a school, and we want them to be able to collaborate with a French teacher at another school.
Ms. Jackson, so what is your proposal that we can approve on this particular item of bargaining?
We're still willing to meet every Wednesday in PLCs. That's not a problem.
What else do you recommend or you suggest?
The problem is with the 2 per month that the teachers are being required to attend, while most of the teachers in the district are already meeting with their peers on a regular basis during the week, there are other meetings that are being scheduled during the week that are voluntary, but if the teachers don't attend, they get a phone call from their administrator asking why they're not at the meeting during their planning period. And while Mr. Boyd handles each one of those individually, when you have annual contract teachers who may not be renewed at the end of the year and your administrator calls to find out why you're not at a meeting during your planning period, they're going to go. So all we're asking is that instead of having 2 required meetings per month during planning for PLC meetings, let the teachers plan in their PLCs every Wednesday, but give them those 2 planning periods during the workday to work in their classrooms or work with their peers as they see fit, not be required to sit through the meetings.
I can't imagine this is the first time that this has been discussed between you and the district bargaining team.
It's been in subcommittee, yes.
And as Ms. Jackson pointed out, when there are individual situations where administrators are expecting more than what the contract provides for, Mr. Boyd or the assistant superintendent or Dr. Fritz or I work with that specific administrator to make sure that he or she is giving teachers the opportunity to plan independently as well within the guidelines of the agreement that we reached a year ago.
Dr. Payson, the proposal that's before us to, whether or not, can this change, can something be worked out in time to include a change that pretty much reflects what the teachers bargaining unit is advocating for?
Well, I think
In
what
this
Ms.
issue,
I
with
think what
this
Ms.
particular-
Jackson referenced was that because our collaborative bargaining process is ongoing, the teams meet monthly, we can come back to the table at any time together and talk about any of these issues to help relieve working conditions. And as I said in my presentation, I think that's an important piece for us to continue to look at. We can reach MOUs during the course of a year, as we did a year ago on the PLCs, as well as on a few months ago on the Cigna pharmacy changes, and those can be changed as you move throughout the process. It just means that it's an MOU and it has to continue to come back to the table and eventually get into the contract if it's going to be enduring.
I don't see any problem with doing that. Let me speak about something else here. On the pharmacy changes, am I to understand, and this is to you, Mr. Jackson, am I to understand that that the employees cannot use PPIs with certain medications, and that is why there was an increase?
The PPIs were discontinued completely. Anyone who has ulcers or acid reflux now has to use over-the-counter medications.
All right.
And as
those
someone
tend to
that
be-
suffers from that, I can tell you that the over-the-counter medications don't work as effectively as the prescription medications.
Well, a lot of the prescription medications for treating those were just recently, well, not recently, but they're quite effective. We're talking about the most advanced in those areas that are OTC. They may even be less than what a copay, looking at some of these prescription drug charges, maybe less now that they're OTC. So I just want to understand if you have real data that's showing that this is becoming a burden on our employees.
Well,
I'm talking about these drugs in particular,
I know.
okay? Because I do know that the advanced drugs are available OTC now.
Correct. But again, when you look at the cost that people are having to pay out of pocket for the medications that are either over the counter or when you go through the process of getting the prescriptions and fill out the necessary paperwork to get the medication that's a prescription, the cost has increased significantly as to what they were paying previously. When the cost goes from $35 to $120 for some medications, that's a huge increase. And it's not a large amount of employees that are on these medications if you look at the actual data.
All right. I'm going over each item,
Okay.
almost. The flex day, what is your proposal? I guess currently is flex day is just one particular day, the last day of school?
The last day of school.
All right.
The
What is-
current MOU, which we brought back to the table as a part of the contract package because it had been previously part of the contract package, indicates that if teachers wish to come in for an extra day of pre-planning, then they can flex the post-planning day at the end of the school year.
Okay.
And our proposal was to let them take any of the 3 work days during the regular school year, in addition to the option to take the last day of school. Any one of the 4 work
You'll
days.
get one. What do you think about that, Dr. Pace? I mean, I guess maybe I'm sure there was thought put in originally why it was the last day versus one of these 4 days, or maybe not, I don't know. Is that a big?
The original discussion about the last day is that because our grades are now processed electronically, teachers are easier, it's easier for them to wrap that up at the end of the school year and submit those. As well with some of the EOCs that are happening, there aren't final exams like for every single class like there used to be at the secondary level. So that's the reason for the flexibility for the last day. Whereas the work days during the school year are specifically timed for teachers to work in their classrooms to prepare their lessons for the upcoming grading period, or whatever they want to do to prepare for the next day that students are coming back. The flexibility for the last day is because they're going to have all summer and then pre-planning to prepare for students.
Do we have any data on those other 4 days? What percentage of teachers are indeed coming, or are we losing?
If you would, Mr. Thacker. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your thought, but they were saying, they're hollering at me to tell you,
Oh.
speak to the microphone.
Do we have any data that says 20% of the teachers are taking personal days or whatever we call those on those days anyway, or do we not? I don't know.
I don't have it for you today at the table. It's certainly data that we could pull.
But I do know that many teachers, their administrators are telling them, once you come in and submit your grades, you may go home for the day. They're already going home, but let's give them the option of using the day as their flex day.
Are they going home and being charged personal time, or are they being granted board leave?
They're being granted board leave
So that already is a flex day.
once they report.
Ms. Jackson, what would your proposal mean? In terms of.
A teacher could notify their administrator once they've met their requirements for grades. That's the big thing. Grades have to be submitted. But they're using October, I believe it's October 12th is their flex day. Or 16th, I'm not sure the date. It's the 16th. They would tell their administrator in advance, my grades are finished, I'm not coming in on this day.
That's inaccurate, I guess.
At this point, they come in, they report, and then they leave and get board leave.
In other words, they're getting flex time
Already.
already.
Not all schools. That's only at some of the schools, not all of them make it available.
So what you're proposing is just to make it available to everyone?
Yes.
When is the next bargaining meeting? Excuse, Dr. Pace, go ahead.
All of these issues are things that we're happy to come back to the table about during the course of the collaborative bargaining process this year, and have the kind of discussion between the parties that typically goes into these types of contract changes.
The only reason, I'm sorry.
Our eagerness today and the reason for our presentation of a package at our bargaining team last week, as opposed to the myriad of different proposals, was twofold. Number one, the insurance plan continues to bleed $625,000 a month. Number two, we want to get the additional salary dollars that the board has budgeted and that has previously been agreed to into the hands of our teachers at the same time that other employee groups who've already settled contracts are going to get their salary increases. And then number three, we added nothing additional to the package. Everything in the contract package that was presented to OCEA last week had at some point in time during the course of our bargaining process previously been agreed to. We added nothing new. That is the reason that it was prepared and presented as a package. And I just feel like I need to clarify for our community, sir, board chair, if you don't mind, that the $5.5 million that was added to the insurance trust fund in place of the bonus is reflected on slide 18 of our presentation, when the board contribution went from the $3 million of infused money that you had previously budgeted for to 8.5.
That was my question, Dr. Pace. That's where you spoke of the $1,000 bonus. I mean, that money is going into the insurance. May not have said it in anywhere, but that's where it was going.
Yeah.
The standard board contribution is listed in the first column of $63.98 per employee. For the last 3 years, the board has budgeted to infuse an additional $3 million into the trust fund to try to keep it solvent. And the last year, we ended up taking the bonus money through our discussions, not agreement, but discussions at the bargaining table, and putting it into the health trust fund. Had you not done that as a board, or had we not done that as a board and as a district team, our trust fund would have been in the negative.
Yeah. I just want to ask one question, just to clarify something. Sarah, would you mind answering this question? Ms. Graper, excuse me.
She'll need to come to the table.
No, well, I just very briefly, we still are, according to the Florida Department of Education, number 67 of 67 on administrative costs. Correct. So we spend less than every district in the state per student administratively. Okay, thank you.
And Ricky, can I make one comment?
Sure.
We knew that the district's proposal was going to remain the same for salaries and insurance and went back to bargaining. Good faith bargaining's definition says that everything should have been discussed at the table, and we were not given that option to discuss any changes to the contract language. I didn't give them to you today for you to vote on them. I wanted you to know that those items were the only things we were trying to get to discuss, and we were refused the right to do so in bargaining.
When is the next meeting?
Our next meeting is not until September, but because impasse has been declared, the items that Dr. Pace presented are what you're going to be voting on today. Nothing that I presented at the end can be decided today, goes back to the bargaining table.
So it goes back to the bargaining table.
The items that I brought up. But if we had been able to have a discussion in bargaining, we might not be here today. We were not given that opportunity. We were told, take it all or nothing. And that is not good faith bargaining.
But Ms. Jackson, from what I understood, a lot of these things were already agreed to by your bargaining.
But once it's not ratified, we go back through the bargaining process and everything's back on the table.
But,
You yourself,
go ahead.
you yourself stated that you understand the budget, that we've had full disclosure with your bargaining team as to the financials.
Correct.
And that you understand what the district position is that not only did you understand it, but that at some point you did accept it.
Correct.
Now, we were into impasse, I understand, and you wanted another shot. What do you think has changed that would have made a difference today?
Once an item is not ratified, everything goes back to the bargaining table. Now, your previous attorney through bargaining told me that we should try, that I could bring up the $1,000 retention bonus again, which is incorrect because you imposed no retention bonus. But everything that was not imposed at the prior hearing is back on the table for negotiations, once ratification is turned down.
I understand your point that did not happen. I'm just, here we are. There is a very important decision to be made. There's a timeline that is very important. And I just want more information as to what could have happened, and I'm just not getting it.
We would have gotten stronger language for working conditions if we had been given the opportunity to negotiate that language.
So we're going to be working on that, if I understand, through MOUs. I think that from my questioning, I hope that they understand at least what this board member feels about the working conditions, which I find your reasoning favorable. Okay, there's a lot of I understand a lot of things that go on that I may not understand when it comes to working conditions between an employer and their employees. All right, can't know everything. But I do understand is the teachers are professionals, and what you're asking for, and the teachers in this case are asking for, sort of a little bit more discretion in some of these issues. I find that completely acceptable. I hope that you could come to an agreement with that sooner than later. But on those two issues that are before us right now, you're not telling me more of what could have been different.
We did not have the opportunity to discuss anything.
I understood that already.
I mean, but even if we had asked for more money, we weren't given that opportunity. We were not given any opportunity.
Did you discover, or learn anything else about the budget or about anything that's going on that could change these numbers in any way?
We were not provided the opportunity to discuss it.
Well, thank you for answering my question.
Mr. Thacker?
I'm done, guys.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Thacker?
I just want to comment on on going back and starting over. This has been one of the most frustrating processes that I've ever seen. One thing that when we started this conversation, I can't remember when it was very early in the year, in 2018. We were trying to get to a place that everybody could agree to prior to school being out. And here we are, we're back in school, and we're still not resolved. And I guess when I hear that once it was not ratified, everything's back on the table, I guess what I'm saying, when you put everything back on the table, I don't know how we ever get to an answer. I mean, we can be having this same conversation in 2 years from now. And I think from a district standpoint, we've got to keep moving. I hear your quality of life issues, for lack of a better word. I'm all for those types of changes, particularly in a situation where you don't have lots of money rolling around that you can do raises with, or big raises. I don't think anybody's thrilled with the raises that we have. I wish they were bigger, but that's not where we're at right now from a financial standpoint and from a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers. So I'm all for it. I probably don't disagree with Mr. Soto here. There's things we can do in quality of life. I don't have a problem going down that path. What I do have a problem with is going down that path and not getting these other issues resolved. Now, the conversation continues anyway. You've got a meeting in September. I don't know when in September, but I think it's important that we get this thing off where it is. I don't think the conversations are going to stop. It shouldn't stop, actually. But the other thing I want to make sure that I understand, based on one of the comments, is I'm going to tell you my understanding of where we are today. And Sarah, this is probably for you and Dr. Bay. We started this conversation way back when, and we knew basically what our pool of total dollars were. We have continued to use that total pool of dollars. What has changed is we moved some of the pharmaceutical, and we have paid down some of the employee contributions on the family side. So that the total, we did not pull money out and stick it somewhere else. It is in the total employee pot. It's just maybe in different buckets within them. So,
Absolutely, yes,
correct?
sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, 'cause that's been my understanding since day one. I just want to make sure that I didn't misunderstand something there.
So, yeah, my quick comments. So I agree with a lot of what's been said here as well, and I think that's important to note. I think my issue would be primarily around process and tone and approach and some of those things, because I think, unfortunately, from where I sit, we have thousands and thousands of people that are really good people, that work really, really hard. And whether they understand it or not, they have a board that genuinely cares about them. And for me, I get a little bothered when I feel like processes are being used, not at my peril, but a peril that I care a lot about. The people that every single day go to our schools and drive our buses and work hard in our community. And the concern for me with that is that it creates a tone and an atmosphere which is the complete opposite of what reality is. Because if anybody ever sat with me and any one of these board members, they would quickly know how much we genuinely care about them. the difficulties that we face in navigating the finances that are handed to us, we all concede are difficult. The desire for everybody here, including the superintendent, to create a world-class school district where employees feel valued, where they have working conditions that are conducive for their own health and well-being, as well as for their excellence in delivery of education or service to our community, is absolutely what we want. I have no doubt whatsoever, and I shared it the other night in a school board meeting, that our superintendent and the staff that support her are doing the right things and are working hard to do the right things. What I want this to conclude with today is more of a spirit that we're going to not vilify and not point fingers and not cast blame, but instead focus on the realities that truly lie before us, speak the truth, and work together to try to do what's right. And I can tell you that throughout this entire process, that's exactly what this board has wanted. I've been in the meetings. It's exactly what the superintendent has wanted. And as Mr. Thacker said, this has been going on for almost 9 months at this point, 8 months. There was a genuine desire from this board to try to do as much as we could, as quick as we could, to provide as much value and benefit as we could. Regarding the MOU and the PLCs and the flex days, I don't necessarily have a problem with some of those pieces and parts as long as I understand all of what they are and the implications that they create. There's a reason that they're there. There's a reason that you guys agreed to them last year in an MOU. I don't want a disingenuous approach to how we go about working with one another. And I don't want the people that are working hard every single day and depending on every person in this room, including the ones sitting up here, to make the right decisions for them and with them, to be misled or misunderstood that somehow people are doing things to intentionally harm and hurt them, when I think in our heart of hearts we all know that's not true. So for me, there's always been a desire and a willingness to do what's right, to find the best opportunity to support our teachers. I think our superintendent said it very well in her presentation earlier, is that we have a multifaceted responsibility, which is to honor the taxpayers of Osceola County, to best serve the students and families that entrust their kids to our care, and to provide the type of workforce and the environment that ultimately people can thrive in. It's all of those pieces and parts, and not one of them can get out of order, and each one has to be honored in the process. And my responsibility and their responsibility as board members is to make sure that we honor each and every one of those parts at all times and not get them out of order or out of process. So am I, as a board member, open and willing to continue to find ways that we can work as a community to support and elevate our educators? Without a doubt. It's why I ran. It's why I'm here. It's what I want. But if we're going to accomplish it, we're not going to accomplish it by creating enemies and villains, and we're not going to accomplish it by misleading or misrepresenting things that otherwise could be very clearly understood. I want that to be the spirit of how we all work and how we all engage with one another in everything that we do.
Thank you, Mr. Weisher. Board, is there anything else?
I've just got, Mr. Krabbenbacher, this is probably for you. Just so I really understand, if I make a motion that imposes this.
Yes.
I got a little lost in the conversation. Some of these things, I'll just use the flex day as an example of several of these things, because I'm not sure procedurally how this works. Could in September they go back and discuss this, and we could make, and if everybody agrees, we could make this change, or does this now sit here until we come back to the whole thing again? I'm not sure how this, do you
That's an
understand my
excellent-
question?
Yes, excellent question. Nothing precludes Dr. Pace and Ms. Jackson and the bargaining teams from getting together on any item and coming to an agreement and bringing it back to you and asking you to adopt it if it's one that requires your adoption.
Okay.
If it doesn't, they can agree and just make it and implement it together.
Okay. So that doesn't have to be once a year sort of final?
No. Normally you bargain once a year, in terms of it gets brought to you for conclusion.
Okay, I just want to
But
make,
they can work, and candidly, good relationships work like that. They're always working constantly, tweaking and improving the process. And I know both Ms. Jackson and Dr. Pace, and so that's the way they operate. I think this is an odd situation where everything kind of got askew,
Sure.
so to speak, and hopefully everything will get kind of put back together in that spirit.
and I know, just one more piece
No,
of
you're
this.
fine.
I know this is highly technical, the way we're doing this stuff. Is there anything, if I want to basically make the motion that I was just describing, which would basically oppose this, with the understanding they can go back and start talking, is there any specific wording that I have to have?
No, I think, sitting here and listening, if you make that motion and that motion's ultimately approved, more importantly, I think both Dr. Pace and Ms. Jackson have heard this board very clearly get back together and work for the benefit of everybody and do what you can to get things in a good working order. And if you have disagreements, fine. I think the key is, if there are disagreements, let's get them resolved earlier rather than let them kind of,
Yes.
move along and just keep adding and adding.
Mr. Krumbacher, my fear about not handling this today would be that it is correct, we've already imposed insurance
Right.
changes, correct? And we did not, because of the ratification vote, get the raises put in there as well, that's correct. And then one more thing, if they don't ratify it, and they did not ratify on the last vote, it's 1 year, so are we just next year gonna be looking at insurance, salaries, and all these things? Since it's not ratified as a contract, we're doing that, you're gonna be bargaining the same things all throughout the year again,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So it's a 1 year, 1 year from today?
Parties don't ratify, you have a 1-year period from the date you implement. And regardless of your decision, my recommendation to you is that you make a decision today so that
Oh, I'm
there is-
certainly prepared
is
to do that. I just-
there is closure on the issues as of today, with the understanding that,
Sure.
and I think Ms. Jackson's been very transparent, I think Dr. Pace has, okay, guys, we're a week away from September and the meeting's starting, do what you can to kind of work together and figure out how to resolve some of these issues. And I think each one of you has expressed that spirit as I've listened to your talking today. I've done this for 40-something years. We're in a terrible situation for everybody because we've got a legislature, despite what's being said, does not value the financial commitment needed for education. And it keeps coming back into your lap and the laps of the employees. And so all you can do is try to keep working together and keep that relationship, which is what I think you've articulated today.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My only concern, just so you guys know what I'm thinking, is the difference between imposing and adopting ratification. I understand your point, April, about that if it goes out for a vote, it won't be ratified. I understand that. But board, if you want to know what any hesitation I have at this point is, that's what it is, which side of the process.
Well,
That's
kind of-
why I asked Frank.
And that's why I was asking the question I was asking too. And I am going to make a motion, but mainly I think I get that the raise, everybody would like to be bigger, but I would like to get the raise in the teachers' hands. That was the intent of moving this thing forward. And my desire is, if we do this, if this passes, I do not want to be here next year. I think the board you know, told some people I've talked to, if we had 20% to give raises, we might start at 10 and negotiate. When you have 2%, you don't start at 1/4% and we've kind of put on the table with the funds that we have, kind of what we've got out there, and I hope we can, I believe that in my heart. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that's kind of where we started. I'd like to see this, I'd like to see the relationship improved within the next year, starting September, whenever the next meeting is. But I think it's important that we move forward. We've got to draw a line in the sand somewhere and stop and say, okay, we're stopped here, now we're going forward for that point. But as far as I'm concerned, today is that day. So I will make a motion that we impose the superintendent's recommendations. A caveat to that motion is the I don't remember if I think it's 5 items. There were more, like I say, I'll put them in the quality of life category. Will be, I don't know if opened is the right word, but addressed. And if there can be resolution found in that in September, October, I know you got the rules on one meeting, the next meeting, but that we figure out a way to move whatever it is faster than what's happening now, because I find this, from my viewpoint, the lack of timeliness on these things seems to work against both parties, both groups. That's just my opinion.
I'm going to make a second with discussion.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I don't know if anybody else wanted to say something, but I have to address something here. I can't just move on with a vote without saying a few words. And I'm talking about particularly to the slide of the proposed salary schedule, I believe it's slide number 5, and page 6 of the district's presentation, their slides. And
The other one will be in here.
Just get rid of this. Okay.
this one here, you can put that on the screen for me, I appreciate it.
This one, sir?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And the other one is just the one that explains the funding that we get from the state. Take note, and I just read it, for 2018 to 2019, Osceola ranked 65 or 67 in total FE/LP funding per student. So I'm going to second this motion with absolutely zero amount of pride. I'm going to tell you that to agree on a salary schedule for teachers that looks like this, that starting salary pay is $41,000, with everything that we entrust upon them, with their responsibility, the impact that they make on our communities, on our state, on our country, it's not something that I'm particularly proud of. But our hands are tied. We really, this decision is not being made as you think. Maybe we're the ones that are putting our face on it. But this doesn't come from us. This is a lot bigger. At some point, people need to realize where our priorities should be and what we as a national identity, as a nation of people, are going to say is important for us. And we're going to give the proper respect to our educators and to our public education system. In my opinion, I don't see, given what I understand in business, in public service, which I've done for almost 30 years, a fair starting salary, if I was to take a educated guess, should be $60,000 to start, and every teacher should be making $70,000 by their 10th year of working. And I'm not even sure. I'm being conservative there. That's what should be. That's where we attract the best teachers. That's where we have a lot of motivation. That's where we have all the extras being done for the good of our community, because it's through our children that that begins. We would maybe hold back on giving tax cuts to corporations and entities that really don't need it, and put that back into our society, into our public schools. We'll save a lot of money after that. Not only would we have great public school systems, but you will see an impact in society right away. Because we do understand that better educated people, they rank lower in all of the indices that have to do with standard of living they get. For some reason, educated people have less time off for sick. They have less legal problems. Just think about all the savings that could be done in our social infrastructure in terms of prisons and mental health and all of these things. And then maybe those savings could be sent back to the corporations and the businesses later on, so that they can have their part of it too. But ultimately, what we would end up with is a lot less suffering, a lot more thriving, and I think that that makes us a better country, and that improves upon the world as well. But that's not the realities that we have. I think that every year we have politically weaponized education at state and national politics at the level. And so you may be voting for this candidate, this man and woman who is a pro-family, faithful, all of these things, but at the same time, you may get those values, but then you're going to get a cut in education. So it's really a difficult situation to see where it's heading. But it's not here. If the money was here, these board members and this administration will certainly not be offending you with a 2% raise. But they're not doing that. What they're doing is a hard decision with what they've got. And I, as your servant, as your elected official, can tell you that that is exactly what I see. And so I second this motion, not because I think, or I'm proud of it, but because these are the realities. And really, it's really up to all of us, individually, our neighbors, our family, on how we're going to do to change our attitudes. And I'm talking about our public consciousness, and prioritize education again. And that is all I have to say, Board.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. I should have stopped after Mr. Weisshire. I appreciate your words. You put it together, articulated that so well. Should stop after Mr. Soto too, so I appreciate those comments. I do, but I do want to say one more thing before we do vote. And Mr. Kruppenbacher, stop me if I'm going down the wrong path, ULP or otherwise. This board put a dollar amount on the table and essentially said, do with it what you will, and we couldn't get there. So I'm committed to do that again this year. Say, here's what we have in the reoccurring fund budget. Decide how you want to do it. I'm committed to do that. We will put what is available there with all the rest that's going on. You know what the insurance hikes are. Decide, do with it what you will. I'm committed to do that again. I've already had some conversations. I wasn't going to bring this up, and sooner or later we'll get to it, but I've already had some conversations with Dr. Pace and Ms. Graver about something that we can do that I think would be fantastic on insurance. And we're going to work on those things too. It may or may not happen. That's why I don't want to bring it up here today. But certainly I think we were committed to saying, here's what we have reoccurring. Make the decision. So I would encourage you this year to make the decision, and let's make this work together, and let's be a team, which we are anyway. No matter what the rhetoric is, we are a team, and so I do appreciate that. I appreciate all the words today. I appreciate all you being here today. Thank you, Ms. Jackson, for your presentation. Dr. Pace, for your presentation. Board, are there any further comments?
I have no, but I want to finish.
See, I finished up really nice, really
track,
clean,
so.
really good.
Yeah, you're fine. Go ahead. No, I want to.
Oh, you want to vote?
After the
Okay.
vote, after the vote, I want to bring up one more.
So, Board, I will call to question the vote. which was made by Mr. Thacker to approve the superintendent's recommendations today, was seconded by Mr. Soto. Mr. Crumpbacher, are we all good?
Yes.
Okay. Board, I'll now call for the vote. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Mr. Thacker had one more thing before we close today.
Yeah, one thing that I've gotten several notes on, and I do think it's a valid question, and I think in the future we need to look at it. I'm not quite sure I think I know how we got to the 8:30 meeting, because we were trying to do something as fast as we could. I think it's a very valid comment by some of the teachers. We've done this when they can't be here. In hindsight, I wish we had not done that, so let's try and remember, if we get down this path again, that we do this at a time when I think that's a fair request. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, I just want to throw it in. I wanted to.
Let's plan not to be here. I think that's the
I'm good
plan.
with that.
So, Mr. Krumbacher, board, we stand adjourned.